Good morning and welcome to Football League World TV. We've got a debate show for you this morning. We're going to be taking a look at the relegation battle currently in the Sky Bet Championship. We're at about the halfway mark now in the EFL season, so it's a good time to assess who's down the bottom and who we feel has got a chance of staying in the division. My name is Sam Rourke, the Chief Editor of footballleagueworld.co.uk. And I'm joined by two of my colleagues, Toby Wilding and Billy Mulley. Toby, how are you getting on this morning?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks. Looking forward to this debate. Obviously, there's plenty of teams to get stuck into, and I'm delighted to say that against all pre-season expectations, my side aren't one of them.
Absolutely. And Billy, I suppose you can say the same thing. How are you getting on this morning?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Toby. Yeah, I'm glad that, hopefully my team doesn't get mentioned in this running. But yeah, I think a lot of attention's been turned to the playoff race and the automatic race. So it'd be a good look to some of the teams near the bottom of the division.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't say the same. My team is well within the topic of debate during this show, so I'm sure we'll come on to that in due course. If you're watching this show on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, send in your comments. Who do you see getting relegated from the second tier this season? We'd love to hear your thoughts, but let's get straight into it then, guys. So let's work from the bottom upwards in the championship table. As it stands, Derby County sit rock bottom of the championship table on 4 points. They have, of course, been deducted 21 points. So it's going to be a mammoth task for Wayne Rooney and his side to avoid the drop to League One. But hats off to them over the last few weeks. They've shown some real admirable performances. And had they not had that points deduction, they wouldn't be in the bottom three of the Sky Bet Championship. They got one of the best defences in the league. Phil Jagielka and Curtis Davis really holding that back line well this season. Right, Toby, let's come to you then. In terms of Derby staying up this season, it's not going to happen, is it?
No, and it is a shame for them because, as you say, the effort that they've put in has been absolutely outstanding. But I do just feel that it's going to be a bit too much, too far for them. I mean, obviously, the points deduction has been a massive blow, but I think as well the restrictions that were placed on them in the summer made it so hard for them to recruit. So, it's sort of almost in a way a combination of a lot of young players and perhaps aging players with a few dotted around in the middle. So that's sort of it. It's difficult in terms of finding a balance for them. And when you really get into the business end of the season and, the miles are in your legs and the pressure's on, it's going to get potentially harder for them to pick up points. And I think obviously the other issue you've got to consider, they are still in administration and the January window's getting even closer. So, that need for funds to keep the club going is going to be significant as well. And that could see them lose even more of their key players in a month's time. So when you add that in as well, I just think all them factors combined mean that as good as they have been in the circumstances, it just looks like it's going to be too big of an ask for them to actually avoid relegation.
Yeah, as it stands, Derby sits 17 points adrift from safety. Reading currently sitting in 21st position. Billy, I mean, is that just too big of a gap in terms of points right now? As I've already mentioned, we are kind of halfway through the championship season now. Is a 17-point gap just too much?
It does seem it, but I think that I'm just about starting to accept that. I think their performance and results against the top two were brilliant, and I think that sort of lifted spirits a little bit more. The sort of positive news on the takeover front as well. So it seemed that everything was aligning and the positive signs were there. Then 2 defeats against QPR and Bristol City. That was sort of the last draw. And I think that 17 points at this stage of the season, moving into the second half of the season, just seems too much. Been really impressed with their performances, their mean defence, as you were speaking about before, Curtis Davies and Phil Jagielka performing really, really well. And any other season, they'd be clear, and I don't think we'd be talking about them in the relegation picture because they do have the quality. And I think January as well is going to be massive for them. A lot of interest already in some of their younger players that have come into the side and have emerged themselves as integral parts of their team this season. So I think if they get picked off in that sense, it could be a massive task ahead of them. It already is, but it could be made steeper. So I think 17 points at this stage of the season is too difficult to get out of.
Yeah, certainly a stern task for Rooney and his charges. Derby County fans, get in the comments. Can you see the club avoiding the drop? It would be some miracle if the Rams did. Please do let us know. Right, let's look at another relegation contender next. Currently sitting just above Derby County in the Championship table is Barnsley. They've only amassed 13 points this season, have only won 2 games all season, the worst record out of any second-tier side. And they've also scored the least goals out of all the Championship sides, having scored just 15. There was, of course, a change of manager a couple of weeks ago. Poya Asbaghi has been given the job at Oakwell to try and steer them out of the relegation zone. It didn't really work under Marcus Schopp following Ismail's move to West Bromwich Albion. Toby, I'll come to you. They've certainly not looked like the Barnsley from last season, have they?
No, it's been incredible. I mean, obviously there has been a few changes there. I mean, Ismail's gone, and that was a massive blow given how he got them working. I think obviously Daryl DK's returned to the MLS after his sort of prolific second half of last season. There, Moat's gone to West Brom following Ismail there, so they have lost a few key figures. But even so, when you look at the squad that's left, you would still have expected more from them than what we've really seen. I think there's still plenty of quality players in that Barnsley side. So I am surprised that even without those few, that they are sort of as far down as they are and have had such a poor record. It's definitely not one that I saw coming to that extent. And obviously now we've seen there's not been a new manager bounce either. That's a worry, especially when I think you look at the fixtures. There have been some tough ones in there, but say you take the goalless draw of Peterborough, for example. We'll come on to them shortly, I'm sure. But that's a missed opportunity that Barnsley haven't taken when you consider that they're a side in around them. So yeah, really sort of surprised by how Barnsley have been performing, and it's a massive worry for them when you get into this point of the season and that's the sort of record you've got under your belt.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Toby, you mentioned there that the fact that the team hasn't necessarily changed too much from last season. Obviously, Alex Moat, a key cog in that tight side from last season, did move on. But other than that, it's pretty much the same personnel. Billy, I'll come to you. I mean, a lot was made of Valérien Ismail's style of play at Barnsley, a very clear-cut, distinct style of play. Wasn't it very high intensity, somewhat direct? Lots was made of Marcus Schopp and his kind of impact at the club. Lots of kind of players hinting at a lack of identity, not necessarily too sure as to what their roles were in the side. Do you think that decision to appoint Schopp's actually, backfired in terms of Barnsley this season?
A little bit, but when you look at their managerial appointments over the years, they tend to get it right. And this may be an anomaly. I know Asbaghi coming in hasn't had the time yet, but it's only 2 points from 5. So I think it was wrong appointment at the wrong time, perhaps wrong club as well. Obviously an appointment that hasn't gone too well, but I don't think that means he should be discredited as a coach. I think there was elements to what he was doing that you could see improvements. I think in terms of the performances, especially at the end of his reign, I think they actually put in some good displays, and it was just the fact that they weren't picking up points and the gap from where they were to 21st place was increasing. I think that was the ultimate decider of why he was let go. And I think there's been a continuation of that. Speaking to Ben Wignall about how Barnsley played against Preston the other day, he said it was a decent enough display from Barnsley. So I think that there's a continuation of this notion that the performances might be there or thereabouts. It's just this cutting edge factor. I think that's the problem at the moment. So a chance to address that in January might be the best course of action. But yeah, I think it's 8 points now from Reading in 21st. So it is growing, and I think that's what the concerning part at the moment.
Yeah, Asbaghi certainly will need to get some points on the board sooner rather than later for sure. Just finally then on the Tykes, Toby, I've spoken about the Tykes' lack of goals this season, only 15 goals scored. What do you put that down to? Because, they've got a handful of good strikers at Championship level in Cauley Woodrow and Carlton Morris, Obiulair and Iseka. There's some players there that can score goals at this level. Do you think it's just the fact that they are just simply out of form? Because Woodrow, hasn't had a great season really, has he, in terms of goal scoring output?
Yeah, that can definitely be a factor. I think the longer you go on that sort of run, the harder it is to snap out of it from a confidence perspective. Obviously, I think injuries as well, it should probably say, haven't helped. Obviously, Carlton Morris, he's been a big miss for them, been out for a long time. So, whether he could sort of trigger something now that he's back could potentially be a game changer for Barnsley, but they're in sort of facing a big uphill battle even so. But yeah, I do think that sort of that issue of confidence and, the longer you're not scoring, the longer your team's not running, when that's all piling up on you, it becomes harder and harder. Obviously, there's going to be the sort of the tension, the nerves from the stands at Oakwell as well. So that adds to the pressure on you. So it's all sort of seems to be going against Barnsley at the minute in terms of fitness and form. And yeah, so it's a really difficult situation they've got themselves into. But as I say, I'll be interested now to see whether Carlton Morris coming back into the side, we all know what he can do. Could that be a big moment for Barnsley now that he's back fit? We'll have to see, but it's one they might well be hoping on.
Yeah, Carlton Morris, an impressive figure for them last season. Knows where the back of the net is at this level. There we go. Barnsley down in 23rd. Let us know in the comments if you think the Tykes can avoid the drop. Let's look at another relegation contender next. So sitting just above Barnsley in the Championship table is Peterborough United. They sit in 22nd position, 19 points on the board right now, 2 points adrift from safety. Worst defence in the second tier, 41 goals conceded. I think it's quite clear to see where the issue lies with Darren Ferguson's men. Toby, I'll come to you then first on this one. Can you see the Posh staying up this season? Have you seen enough from them to suggest that they can establish themselves in the second tier?
At the minute, no. I wouldn't say so, but that could change. I mean, I think you look at Saturday, that's a really impressive win for them against Millwall. Millwall aside, who are not in that playoff battle as such, but the one who are on the edge of it, looking to get into it. So I think the fact that Peterborough won that's an impressive result for them. And, if they can carry on like that, then obviously they've got a strong chance of getting out there. I think the issue for them is the consistency, though. I mean, as we said, I think they've only won back-to-back games once this season. So, the pressure is now almost on them more after that Millwall game in terms of building on that. And if they can get a run going from that game, then they've shown they have the quality on their day to sort of give other teams at this level a problem. It's whether or not they can find that consistency for me that I think is a big issue. And obviously, as you say, that record in terms of goals conceded is a massive concern as well. And I think there's definitely individual errors have had to play a part in that at times. I mean, I watched them at Blackburn a few weeks ago and Blackburn were good, but Peterborough absolutely gifted them a couple of goals, and you will not stay in the division making those sorts of mistakes. So there's potential there, but they've got to iron out their mistakes and sort of really use Saturday as a stepping stone, I think.
Yeah, I mean, scoring goals has also been a bit of an issue for Posh this season. Only 19 goals scored. Johnson Clark-Harris on the score sheet for them against Millwall on the weekend. That'll do his confidence a big boost. Billy, I'll come to you then. Do you think there's enough quality in that Posh side, enough championship experience and nous to suggest that they are a team that are capable of staying up?
I think it's an interesting one because if you look back to the summer, it seemed that out of the three promoted clubs, that they were the ones that added the most championship quality to their squad when you look at what Blackpool and Hull have done. And so in that respect, I think they did, but they just haven't shown themselves in the sort of the correct light in the championship. I think that they're a team that will recruit in January. I think they'll look to establish themselves in the Championship. I think there's a lot of emphasis within the Peterborough camp that they want to establish themselves as a Championship club. And I think that will be done by adding in certain areas in January. You look at the defence, as you were saying before, the defensive record of conceding 41 goals. I think that's somewhere they'll be looking at. Also good players in the defence as well. But I think that needs Championship quality. You think of what Blackpool done with Keogh, and he's played a big part for Blackpool when he's been available. So I could imagine Peterborough doing the same. Attacking firepower, you think of Dembele and Clark Harris up top, two players that I thought would adapt well to the Championship. I thought that Peterborough were going to be a side that did concede a lot of goals and score a lot of goals, similar to how they played in League One last season. But it hasn't really fared out that way when you look at their goal scoring record. As you said, only 19 goals this season. One of the worst, if not the worst, goal difference in the division as well. So that's not going to bode well for them if it does get tight in the latter stages of the season. But I do think that Peterborough can go up a gear. If they recruit right in January, I think that they can take this fight all the way.
Yeah, I think the January transfer window will be important for the Posh. We've had a comment come in from Alex Batts, big Peterborough United fan on YouTube. Home form will be key for us. We can beat/compete with anyone at home. We just need to get over the line in those games. Away from home, we're losing most games, sadly. Yeah, definitely Posh's away form is something that needs to be rejuvenated in the new year for sure. Right, let's look at another relegation contender next. Let's move into 21st position. Right now, Veljko Paunovic's Reading sit in 21st position, 2 points above the drop zone, Posh in 22nd. It's been a mixed season for the Royals on the pitch. They've gone on some good winning streaks and then also had some poor losing streaks as well. They were, of course, deducted 6 points this season, which has affected their league position. Toby, I'll come to you then first. Reading have a team that on paper could well be capable of a top half finish at the very least. They have suffered with a raft of injuries to a lot of their key players this season. Do you think they'll be safe this season?
Yes, I'm tempted to say just. I mean, I think you look at, as you say, we sort of touched on it with Derby, and you can touch on it again with Reading. The points deduction perhaps means that they are in a lesser position than they probably should be, based purely on how things have gone on the pitch. I mean, they'd be up in about 18th, 17th without that deduction, 8 points clear, and maybe they probably wouldn't be in this discussion. And I think, as you say, you look at that side sort of that they put together sort of over the summer and beyond that, with Andy Carroll coming in late, obviously Scott Dan, Danny Drinkwater as well. There's a lot of top flight pedigree in there, players who perhaps in some cases haven't been at the top of their game for a little while, but are still undoubtedly full of a lot of quality, more than capable of making an impact in this division. I think what could be massive for Reading is what happens in the next month with regards to John Swift and obviously his influence on this side. I mean, he both in terms of goals and assists, I think he's been involved in such a high percentage of the Royals' goals this season. So keeping him could be massive, obviously, with sort of talk again about potential Premier League moves and his contract running down. So for me, I think that will be a sort of big catalyst for how Reading's second half of the season goes one way or another.
Yeah, absolutely. The future John Swift will be a big talking point down in Berkshire in January for sure. Billy, I've mentioned the injury situation at Reading. It's been pretty crisis mode really over the last few weeks in terms of the personnel out. In terms of players coming back in the new year, you've got the likes of Lucas Shaw, Yaku Mate, Michael Morrison, players like Andy Rinamoto as well coming back into the fold. With that in mind, do you think that there's enough in that Reading team to feel like they'll steer clear of relegation?
Yeah, looking purely on the quality that the players you've mentioned there possess, I think yes. But I think it'll be one that could go down to the wire, given sort of the lack of football that the likes of Yao and Rinomota, Maite as well, all players that haven't played much football this season. And yeah, I think it will take a long time to gel again. I can't see anything happening instantly, but I think that as the season progresses, Reading will get stronger. I don't see them being in and around the relegation zone at the end of the season, but I can imagine sort of this inconsistency of results to carry on maybe into sort of late February, early March, and I expect them to pull away from then. As you say, that the players there, they possess a lot of quality, even likes of Ovie Ejaria has missed a few games in recent weeks as well. So getting players like him fit and ensuring that they get back into the flow of playing football for Reading, I'm sure that they'll manage to pull away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a key issue with Reading is their consistency. We've seen some really impressive away wins for the Royals this season, notably at Fulham. Beat Fulham 2-1 at Craven Cottage, beat Birmingham at St Andrews, and beat Swansea not too long ago as well. 3 pretty impressive away wins in recent weeks/months. It's just about backing them wins up at home. The home form's been a little bit iffy this season for the Royals. But Reading fans, get in the comments. Do you think the Royals have got enough to stay afloat in the Sky Bet Championship this season? Please do let us know. Right, let's rattle through some of the other contenders then in the Championship relegation battle. We've got Cardiff City in 20th position right now, 1 point above Reading. As I said, 22 points on the board for them. We saw Mick McCarthy get the boot earlier on this campaign, replaced with Steve Morrison. And there's certainly been a feel-good factor around the Bluebirds of late. Positivity in terms of their results. Lots of players coming out in the press and kind of praising Morrison's work behind the scenes at the Cardiff City Stadium. Lots of spirit as well, I think it's fair to say, within that squad. We saw that impressive comeback at St Andrews on the weekend after they were 2 enthralling game at Stoke City a couple of weeks ago, where they came back to draw 3-3. Billy, we'll start with you then with Cardiff City. Are they relegation contenders under Steve Morrison or not?
I think looking at the points and the proximity to the relegation zone, we do have to consider them as relegation candidates. But given the feel-good factor, as you alluded to there, and the sort of the continued rise in points as well, I think they'll be clear. That they possess far too of a squad to be in this question, in my opinion. But the fact that they are still so close to the places means that they have to be considered. I still find them a little bit too one-dimensional. Obviously, it reaps its rewards because it has worked, and it's worked since Morrison's come in. And one thing I'd like to see is them to add a playmaker in January, a player that a lot of the football can go through. A lot goes through sort of Giles on the left wing, but a player more central that gives them sort of another plan, another dimension to their attacking play is what I'd like to see from Cardiff, because I still think they possess a really strong squad, a squad that can progress. And not this season, I don't think we'll see it this season, but they'll threaten the playoff picture again. I can imagine next season that they've got the quality there. It's just making sure they add in the right places and go on and, well, first and foremost, avoid the drop this season, because they're still within the picture. I think Morrison, as you say, he's created this feel-good factor around the club. How long it will last, I'm not too sure. But at the moment, they just need to ride it out and continue picking up points whilst the mood is good in the camp. Yeah,
I think the point you made regarding a central attacking midfielder is worth talking about, because, like you say, a lot of the kind of creativity in that final third does come via Ryan Giles and his impressive crossing ability. Perry and G's also come into the fold of late under Steve Morrison, has become a kind of real weapon down that flank as well. Toby, do you think the kind of need for another source of creativity in the new year it should be high up Steve Morrison's transfer sort of wish list?
Yeah, I would say that's definitely an area they need to look into. I mean, I'll be honest, I do think that if they do strengthen in January, then they should expect to pull away with the quality of the squad they've got. But yes, there is perhaps that sort of reliance on that one sort of crosses from out wide, maybe sort of style of play, and maybe needs something to sort of offer them an alternative to that. And I mean, I think you've got to say one important thing here is that we've got Kiefer Moore back scoring again for Cardiff. I mean, 4 of his 5 league goals this season have come in the 7-8 games since Morrison took over. So I think you're seeing again he's going to become key for Cardiff this season. But you pun not intended there. But you've got to say that if he does say pick up an injury or something, then you do worry about where sort of those goals would come from. So that's potentially why you need to be looking at sort of another sort of playmaker for Cardiff, someone who can make that happen, even if you've not got that presence of Moore there to be putting them in the back of the net. So definitely, I mean, I would expect, given the way Cardiff have turned things around recently, they should pull away. But I do think sort of maybe a bit of business to consolidate that in January will just really make sure there.
There we go. Toby and Billy both suggesting that Cardiff City can pull away from that bottom 3 picture as we progress through the season. Right, let's look at a few more contenders next. In 19th position right now are Grant McCann's Hull City. They've been in fine form over the last few weeks, unbeaten in their last 6 games, 4 wins as well within that last 6. It's been an impressive run for Hull City, who looked for a time almost to be stuck in that bottom 3 picture, but they pulled away quite nicely. Billy, I'll come to you first. It's been a good few weeks for Hull City, hasn't it?
Yeah, it definitely has. In terms of turning results around, it's been brilliant. The one thing I am a little bit concerned about is that with this talk of the new takeover, will Grant McCann still be in this job? It's a big question. I'm sure Hull fans all have their opinion on Grant McCann and whether he can progress the club as the new owners wish. But I guess we'll have to wait and see with what happens with the takeover deal and then what happens with Grant McCann. But I think he's definitely doing well at the moment. He's definitely making a case for him to stay at the club. One thing that they will have to also keep an eye on is that big collapse that they did have in the 2019-2020 season. A repeat of that would be catastrophic for them because of this feel-good sort of sense that they've got now back at the club after these sort of last 6 games. I think even when they were struggling, they weren't ever getting beaten by too many goals. They remained in the game. They possess a strong back line, and I think that's something that could be key for them this season. But I think as we come into January, there has been interest in Jacob Greaves. Also higher up the pitch, there's been interest in Keane Lewis Potter. So keeping the core group together is going to be key for Hull and what remains of this season. I personally think they're another club that should be all right this season, given what they do have in the squad and given this turn of form and what they can build from here. But yeah, I think there's a lot of uncertainty, especially around McCann, and then looking a little bit further into the January transfer window. But Hull, for me, do possess a good enough squad to keep the relegation zone at arm's length.
Yeah, I suppose that kind of impressive run of form over the last few weeks has kind of coincided with George Honeyman's return to full fitness. He's been in excellent form over the last few weeks. I saw him when Reading played Hull City the other week. I was so impressed with Honeyman, his kind of industrious nature in the middle of the park. He's buzzing everywhere, up and down the pitch. Yet it's very elegant on the ball, very good at his passing distribution and everything else. So he's been a massive part of what they're doing, isn't he, Toby?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he could be vital. I mean, I'm just looking at his record now. Four goals already in 11 league games this season. So that's already a lot more than the last time he was in the Championship with Hull. It's actually matched his scoring record now from the League One promotion campaign last year. So he's really starting to now come into his own in the Championship. And sort of that, as Billy touched on there, with the interest in Keane Lewis Potter, if that does materialise next month, and it could be hard for Hull to turn down a bid from one of the many Premier League sides who seem to be being linked to him, then that's only going to further enhance the importance of Honeyman to this side in terms of he is another one who can really make things happen for them going forward. So I mean, you look at his records over the past couple of seasons. He was crucial last season. It looks as though he's going to be crucial this season. So, yeah, and you've got to credit him for now making that step up. I think, as with anyone in that team, even after promotion last season, the ones that had stayed from the last championship campaign, there'll have been a huge amount of pressure on them to go and put right what was a dismal second half of that season. And he's really one who is stepping up and making sure that he does that. So you've got to credit him for the impact he's making for the Tigers right now.
Yeah, definitely a very important player for Grant McCann's side, it's fair to say. Right, let's look at some other potential contenders next. So let's discuss any other potential candidates for relegation you feel there are in the Championship right now. Billy, I'll come to you. Are there any other sides that we've not spoken about on this show so far that you feel could get dragged into the relegation mire? I pick out a couple of names. Blackpool and Bristol City are two teams above the kind of pack we've spoken about already. Blackpool in pretty poor form, haven't won in their last 6, lost their last 3. Are there anyone that we haven't spoken about that you feel could get dragged into it?
I don't think outright, but I think a very, very slim chance is Bristol City. A team that I probably am speaking about here because of when I've seen them play Luton or whenever I've seen them play on TV. I haven't been too impressed with their performances. They have responded well and got results after sort of poor runs of form, and getting their home record back on track is a key thing for the rest of the season. But yeah, there's still 8 points, I think it is, clear of that relegation picture at the moment. So I think they should be fine. But I think they've also had that poor turn of form before in the second half of the season, and I can imagine if that happens again and they are thrown into this relegation picture, then yeah, it could become a big scrap for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Toby, do you echo Billy's words there? I mean, another team that I guess you could talk about is Swansea City. 4 losses in their last 6, so they're on the same amount of points as Blackpool and Bristol City. Who else are you feeling could get dragged into it, if anyone?
To be honest, I think it's more any side from here on up we're more sort of talking about in terms of maybe nervously looking over their shoulders rather than really being dragged into it unless something goes badly wrong for them. I mean, of those sorts of sides, I'm giving their run of form looking at Blackpool. Obviously, yeah, sort of as you say, no win in 7 now. A few defeats in there, although with the exception of that Luton win at Bloomfield Road, none of them have been particularly emphatic. So it's just a case of maybe slim margins in some of them. So potentially they could turn things around. I mean, it wasn't that long ago I was talking about them on here as being the side of overachieving most in the Championship this season. So it's sort of been a rapid turnaround for them. But as we can see, they can turn it around. I mean, they had a brilliant start to the season. So if they rediscover that, then I don't think they'll be in too much trouble. Swansea, as you say, they're another one on that sort of same points tally. But I think the way they play and sort of the quality of players that they've brought in, I mean, Olivier Ntcham, I still marvel at how they managed to get him in there. I think just with the squad they've got, and the more they adapt to this new style of play under Russell Martin, because I think there is still an element of a change there that maybe isn't going to click every week. I think they should have enough to get out of that. Interestingly, Birmingham are another one on 27 points, and they just can't seem to find that sort of consistency that we sort of maybe saw from them when Lee Bowyer first came in sort of towards the back end of last season. So there's a few sides there who, I mean, depending on how things go in terms of whether they can really hit the ground and play as well as they can, could get dragged in. But really, I can't see any of them actually genuinely sliding into the bottom 3 at this moment in time.
Right, there we go. So, Toby, Billy, let's get your predictions at pretty much the halfway point in the Championship season. Toby, we'll start with you. What do you think the bottom 3 will look like come May?
Well, if you can sit on the fence with a table, then I think I might be about to do it and say it'll be the bottom three that are there now for me. I think, as we've touched on, just the sheer challenge that Derby have with the points deductions and the administration issue coming up to January, I think that's going to give them too much to overhaul. Barnsley, again, just they've not had that bounce that you expect under a new manager. And as I've sort of said when we're talking about them, the harder, the longer they're on this sort of poor run, the harder it's going to be for them to snap out of it. And I think they've got a pretty tough run of fixtures coming up as well. Looking at it, West Brom, Stoke, Blackburn, Forest, all teams in good form, so not an easy run either. So they could be facing an even bigger deficit come the turn of the year. Peterborough maybe have a better chance than the other two of getting out of it, but again, I just think there's so much of a reliance on the home form. I don't think they can bank on just picking up enough points in half of their games there to get out of it. And the other thing is, I look at the majority of them other sides we've discussed, and I just feel like they've got that extra bit of quality that means they should be able to pick up the results to pull away from it at some point between now and the end of the season.
Well, there we go. Toby sticking with the bottom three as we speak. Billy, what is your bottom three you feel is going to materialise?
Unfortunately, it's the same as Toby and the same as the current bottom three. I think Derby and Barnsley, that they're pretty much a given at this point, given the points difference and the general. Barnsley more so, the sort of feeling around the club at the moment, it does seem that it's pointing towards one way. Peterborough, if they were playing at home every week, they'd be in the promotion picture. So it's that away form that it's just been too bad to warrant anything other than remain in a relegation threatened side as the season progresses. I think what Toby was saying is right as well. When you look at Reading and Cardiff, the two immediate teams that are just above Peterborough, I think that they're too good, and with Reading looking to welcome back so many key players in January and early February, I think that could be massive for the Royals and Cardiff as well. I think just looking generally at their squad and the players they do possess in that squad, and even if Cardiff were in the relegation zone or the relegation picture as the season progresses, that they're a team that have got that fight and desire that I could imagine getting out of those positions. And then Hull, perhaps the only other side I could see being dragged into it, especially if things turn a little bit sour in the January transfer window and they do lose a few integral players and don't replace them sufficiently. But yeah, in my head, I can't really see too much changing with the bottom three, unfortunately.
There we go. Billy and Toby both opting for the current bottom three to be the final current three come the end of the season. Right, well, that brings a close to this morning's debate show here on Football League World TV. We took a look at the relegation battle in the Sky Bet Championship. But if you're watching this show on demand, on repeat, on YouTube, send in your comments. Do you agree with Toby and Billy's prediction that the current bottom three in the Championship will stay like that come the end of the season? We've got one more show for you later on this afternoon or here on FLW TV. George Douglas is going to be hosting this one. We're going to be taking a look at Forest Green Rovers in League Two. Can anyone stop FGR in League Two? They've been in phenomenal form this season. Toby, Billy, thanks for joining me this morning. I enjoyed that one. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to FLW TV on YouTube and like the video. But until next time, we shall see you soon.